So when I was in the 11th grade, I went on this short-term trip to the coast of Mississippi with Grace Church and School. And that trip helped to sort of plant this desire to see people's needs met and go and serve people. And that desire really stayed as I got into college and I met Josh, and we both became believers around the same time, and we started serving in student ministry together. And we ended up going on this short-term trip to the Philippines for a summer and serving there together. And I remember we had this one specific conversation. We're like sitting on the roof of this building out in the middle of nowhere in the jungle in the Philippines.
It was kind of an insane trip that we were on. We were literally just doing basketball camps as an effort to like reach the people and share the gospel. And as we were there sitting on top of this roof, it just kind of hit us in a really big way that we're in this moment where we really felt like we were fulfilling some like divine purpose, which we were. And we realized that this is something that is not a summer calling, but this is a lifelong calling.
I am Elizabeth Smith, and I have been on all of 2 official missions trips. Both of them were actually ended up being medical missions trips. I went on the first one when I think I was 16. My grandparents gave it to my sister and I to go to Guatemala with them on a medical missions trip to as our senior year present for high school. And the medicine and stuff never arrived, and that trip was just a big fiasco and disaster.
My first mission trip was when I was a junior in high school. I went to Appalachian area of Kentucky. The youth group itself was going on a mission trip, so it just seemed like if I was part of the youth group, I should go on a mission trip. A bunch of churches in our denomination have a relationship in Appalachian, Kentucky, and for over 20 years, churches have been going to that area of Kentucky to work with people who are impoverished and fixing their homes and helping those who are disabled and poor and unable to do it themselves, and also sharing about Jesus as we do it. That was the gateway for a lot of other mission trips, that first one. It drew out a passion I didn't know I had, which was traveling and meeting people from a culture or context that was different than the one I'm from, trying to help them in any way I could, but also to share about Jesus with them.
I'm Lonnie, I'm 17, I'm about to graduate this May, and I'm planning to attend LSUA in the fall.
And I'm Caroline Lucius, and I'm 15 years old.
This May we plan to take a mission trip to Peru to help our Aunt Ruthie, who's a missionary down there.
So my aunt and uncle run an orphanage where they help out young moms and young children, just kind of like teach them basic house skills, stuff like that, and help them to be ready to go out and live an independent life.
Then I went on my second trip, which I think some of y'all might remember. I went over to the Middle East, and it was again a medical missions trip, and that trip definitely impacted my life in really huge ways. It's completely changed the total course of my life. I fairly quickly got into conversations with our denomination's mission sending agency to go ahead and talk and start learning about committing to going over full time. And I went from not caring at all, honestly, about missions in the summer of 2014 to now I am going overseas, hopefully January of 2019.
I was not even a believer for a year yet. The first mission trip I took, the youth pastor was sensing that God was working in me, so he encouraged for me to take part, helped me raise support for it. A couple years later, I ended up going to the youth ministry and doing these trips every summer, and always a highlight to watch other kids get that seed planted where they wanted to do these trips, and they got a lot out of it. I thought I was going to be in youth ministry for a long time, and God said, no, now this is what I've been doing the whole time, and preparing you for something bigger, and now you're going to go long-term overseas.
We started back in the Philippines in 2013, and then that journey kind of climaxed with us realizing like we're called to reach the nations, and the nations have all gathered in cities all around the United States. And so that kind of led us to saying, okay, where can we reach the nations most effectively? And that's what helped us choose to move not just us, but about 15 other people over to Los Angeles to start building his kingdom and making disciples of all nations here. And it really all started with short-term missions.
In Peru, our Uncle Dax pastors a small church with a small regular congregation.
When we're down there, we're gonna be like doing small activities with the children in the orphanage, just playing games and stuff like that. And we'll also be doing small projects, building a stone wall and painting projects, stuff like that.
Since our uncle and aunt have given their lives to missions, we wanted to help them for a couple weeks in their labor.
We're also excited to try out our Spanish that we've been learning through the course that we've been taking the past 2 years. That'll be interesting.
When I knew that God was calling me to missions full-time, I knew that I couldn't be with somebody that wasn't also invested in it for long-term, for full-time overseas work. So when I met Elizabeth, not only do we are we together and just like any other relationship is, but we also share this very kind of to a lot of people scary or unique, trait in that we are both called and passionate about taking the gospel to the ends of the earth too.
All I'd ever wanted for my whole life was to be the married woman with all of the kids, living on a farm with dairy goats. Like, I literally had my whole future mapped out. God was calling me to go to missions and to go and do this weird long-term living overseas kind of thing. And I'm usually an all or nothing kind of person. And so once I was in all the way. And I set aside that whole dream, that whole life. I set aside, and it might sound silly, but it's real. I set aside my piano students, who I love and still miss, because you can't do that and this. It's one or the other. And you have to go with the one that God is calling you to, the one that God is calling you to be with. And I set aside any hopes and dreams of being married and settling down and having the nice American life. And it was fine. Like, I really was 100% fine with it. Because in a lot of ways, being a single missionary is a lot easier than being a married missionary, because you don't have as many responsibilities. You don't have to juggle marriage and kids and schooling and, oh my gosh, are they going to go to an English-speaking school or a private school or what? Like, the options are overwhelming. I was excited to not have to make any of those kinds of choices. So I laid aside my ideal of marriage, and I followed this path that God called me on. Felt like a really big sacrifice in a lot of ways. It really, really did. But then as I'm going down on this journey, and I'm going off for all of this training and meeting all of these wonderful people, and then I've made wonderful friendships, and then this one friendship becomes so much more than that. And God has blessed me in so many ways. And I've now gotten more than I could ever have imagined or dreamed of. Yeah.
What's his name?
Oh, his name would be Greg. Yeah. You might have met him.
We're learning that nothing is possible without the prayers and the support of others. And I'm just very grateful, and I want to thank anyone who has supported any of these short-term trips, but also who's supporting us for this long-term effort too. It's really neat and very encouraging to see churches from all over the world and right here in Alexandria jump in and take part in what God's doing.
You might get tired of hearing kids come to ask you for money to support this or to support that. so many worthy causes out there for everything, but missions are the most important of all the things for all the reasons. They are important for the lives that you impact while you are actually there overseas, but perhaps even more so, they're important for the impact in the lives of the ones who are actually going. And you just don't know where God's gonna take it. You don't know what He's gonna do. I had no idea that this was gonna be my life. Not at all. And I couldn't have done it without y'all. So I encourage you to support young missionaries, to just watch and see what God will do with them. It's such a blessing to be a part of it.
We're excited to be part of Grace Church's long-going tradition of supporting small missions.
Y'all's continuous support through prayer is always greatly appreciated, and if you wish to, you can support us financially through the church.
There are people to go and there are people to send, and both roles are equally important.
Ora para nos, por favor.